Hello, I'm Hal Ottaway with the Wichita Postcard Club, and it's time once again for a postcard of the week. And this week, I want to introduce you to Andrew Cunningham from Toronto, Canada. He is our speaker this coming Saturday, February 7th, Wichita Postcard Club meeting. And I'm going to just ask Andrew to tell a little bit about his program, and we can't wait to hear about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Hal, and it's a great honor to participate in your event, which is always so entertaining. What I'm going to talk about this week is a particular real photo postcard photographer that I've collected for many years. His name is George Barraclough, Barrowcloughh, and he was active in Canada at a very early stage of real photo postcards from 1904 until 1912, and he was initially in Winnipeg, where I'm from, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and then later in Vancouver. And so I'll be looking at the progress of his photographic career, which started a bit earlier, how he got into postcards and then real photo postcards, and some of the things that he tried to do as a rather innovative photographer over that period in Canada. And also, there's a few cards from the US which are really interesting too that I'll be including. So that's sort of an overview of what I'm going to do. And I have a one postcard as an example, which I brought along of his work, which I think may be of interest, and a card of a circus parade. This was from early in his career. It's from June of 1905 in Winnipeg. It's on Main Street in Winnipeg, and it shows a circus parade heading from the train station to the circus grounds where the circus was going to perform. The circus was the Four-Paw Cells Circus, which was one of the major circuses at the time in the United States. And it had just come up from Fargo. It had been performing in, I think, in Minneapolis and Sioux City and Omaha and Fargo, and it was coming to Winnipeg on the 22nd of June of that year. So in the card, you can see some of the detail of the parade, which is really interesting. Of course, a large crowd of people has assembled. This is well advertised in advance. The circus itself made sure that the newspapers were full of information about where the circus parade was going to go and when. And you can see, for example, things designed to entice people to go to the circus itself, such as painted images of exotic animals on one of the carriages. The carriages were also very opulently designed, had gold designs on them that were obviously going to be very attractive to people, as well as being drawn by beautiful white horses, which were um, one of the things people were most interested in seeing. So you can see the crowds lining the street, people on the buildings. That was very common in those days at parades. People were fearless about sitting on parapets and on the roofs of buildings, on windowsills, no matter how high up it was, just to get a glimpse of the parade. The circus itself, as I said, was very heavily promoted in advance by Four Cells. So they would actually send articles to the local newspapers, which would then be printed by the papers, um, detailing some of the stories about the circus. They tried to make a spectacle out of everything. So the circus parade, which went from the train station down to the circus grounds, was one thing. They didn't just move their animals and their material quietly. It was itself a big attraction. Then also another attraction was the construction of the site, which they invited people to come and look at. And that was, of course, an enormous endeavor. They had to erect I think it was 12 big tents. And this was attacked with military-like precision. Um, and they detail that in one of the articles. They say, first of all, there was an advance guard of tent men um, who would come and measure and mark the location of the tent stakes. Then there would be wagons that would bring the tent stakes, poles, canvas to the location. 1,000 men were working on that. Then they would always start with the kitchen because they had to get that up and running to make breakfast for all the people that were working, and also the dining tents. So the first tent to go up was the kitchen, and then there was a row of uh, a long row, they said, of cooking ranges within that. Breakfast already being prepared. As they said, the hard work of the circus men cannot be done on empty stomachs. So they put up that, the dining tent, and while this is going on, all the other tents, the stable tent, the tent for the menagerie, a blacksmith shop, they had a whole blacksmith um, sort of shop that went with it with six blacksmiths and many helpers. They had to shoe 500 horses. They had to make lots of repairs to the carriages, which of course would incur damage on the way from one town to another. Um, and then, while this was done, finally, the big top was set up the big tent, and that involved setting up a huge array of poles and guy ropes until at the end, three teams of horses pulled from various angles the guy ropes, and the big tent would go up, pop up. So that was itself a big uh, part of the promotion was to go and see that, and thousands of people did. They went to see that. And then the circus itself made four performances, and according to the newspaper, about 25,000 people showed up to the very first performance. So what was popular about it were the elephants, the horses, as I said, camels, um, all kinds of things. They also had ethnic performers, Russians and Japanese people in costume. They had clowns. These were all also in the parade, so you could get a taste of it from the parade. And it was, a big success, very popular. And they would have to do this at every town they went to. So they'd just been previously in Fargo. They came up to Winnipeg, and then after that, they went back down to Grand Forks and out to Duluth and Chicago and all these places. And every few days, they'd have to reenact this whole huge exercise of setting up this enormous circus. And it's just something that comes out of seeing one postcard and then going and looking at all the newspapers that surround that time and finding out the extra detail about it. Sort of a very forgotten part of North American life was the circus coming to town. And I've seen quite a few of these circus parade postcards because every circus had to go from the train station to wherever it was going. And this is quite an impressive one for one of the very large circuses of the time. Um, the Four Paw Cells Circus was a descendant of Adam Forepaw's circus, and Adam Forepaw was the major rival of P.T. Barnum in the 1870s and 80s. He had been initially a horse trader. He'd gotten rich from selling horses to the U.S. government during the Civil War when horses were scarce and very expensive. And that kind of got him into this world of animals. And it's partly why the horses are such a big emphasis of this particular circus. But by this time, he had died a number of years before, and the circus had moved on. And eventually, I think it was this time it was under the control of Ringlings, the Ringling brothers, but I'm not quite sure. There was a lot of intermixture between the circuses. For example, even though Barnum and Forepaugh were bitter rivals, they also at certain times cooperated, and they also divided up the U.S. circus territory in order not to compete too much. But at other times, they actually had their circuses performing together in certain venues too. So it's a very interesting history of circuses in the United States and Canada. And this was just a little window into that, even though that's not the main focus of the talk, but it's just an example of the sort of things that you learn from studying the real photo postcard photographers and their work, because they were taking pictures of everything that mattered to people at that time. So that's an example of one thing that Barraclough did that yields a lot of information when you look at it carefully.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. That's just wonderful. It just certainly makes the everything just come alive. This whole business of circus and what the photographers had to work with and to make these wonderful postcards that we so enjoy today. And it was a main way of communication at that time, for sure. Please mark your calendar. Be with us this coming Saturday. It's February 7th, and we can't wait to see you. We'll be here at 1:45 p.m. Central Time. Don't miss us. Be sure to make your adjustment on time changes and so forth with the different time zones. So we'll see you this Saturday, and thank you, Andrew, once again, and we'll see everyone then. Bye bye.
Bye bye.